so hence we have what we had, the climate march just recently in New York, which was joined by people not just from the United States but also from Canada and from other parts of the world. And people are beginning to say, wait a minute, this is serious. We're damaging the ecology, and we're also damaging our relations with one another. There's a lot of social justice issues that we need to work out too. So that's what the sage means, that when she says that this is the greatest, that this may be the best thing that ever happened to humanity. And you can look at it in one's own life. That how many times have you heard people say when they went through a catastrophic event that they turn around and look and said, without that catastrophic event, I would not have grown, I would not have jumped, I would not have evolved in a certain way. So that's the metaphor behind the might be the best thing that ever happened to humanity.
I understand and I appreciate that. Yes, there was this big march in New York and other cities around the world, and yes, people are coming together. However, we've seen this happen in the past, where where society has banded together in order to make a change, but when it comes to making that change, it's the people who make the most money who actually win.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would point at certainly the civil rights movement in the United States as an example. It is no longer illegal for someone who is not Caucasian to move into some neighborhoods of the cities that I live in. There's actually I saw recently that there was one of the codes, covenants, and restrictions of a particular neighborhood in the 1940s said only people of the white Caucasian race may live here.
Yeah.
And people read that today. Even people who tend to be a little racist think, "Oh my God, that's just horrible." So
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you on that 100%. That when it comes to the racial aspect, it does at times work. And I'm saying at times because there are many examples that I can give you since the civil rights movement that is still going on today. It's not as prevalent as it was, but it's still happening. But when it comes to big pharma, for example, when it comes to the polluting of the atmosphere, global warming, we've known about this for years. There have been other marches, there have been other protests, but it's the people with the big, deep pockets that are making a lot of money, that are paying off the lobbyists, who are paying off government officials, who win.
Yes.
There was a comic years ago called The Wizard of Id, and the king was talking to his knight, Sir Rodney, and the king said, "I live by the golden rule." Rodney said, "What's that?" And the king says, "Very simple. Whoever has the gold makes the rules." And that's the way it is today in society as well.
And I'm not going to deny that. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to deny that. There is it's a systemic thing too. I actually was listening to one talk show host who said I happened to get a chance to fly business class across the states, and I was sitting next to the CEO of an aerospace engineering firm, which makes weapons. They make weapons and they profit off of a war economy. And she said to him, "How is it that we're going to change our economies from a war economy to a peace economy?" And he was at first very, very defensive when he found out that she was kind of from the other side of the aisle. And she just simply asked that question, and he just kind of looked at her and said, "I don't know." So the issue is even bigger than we think, because it's not the people with the money, it's the system within which those people flourish that allow them to create such vast amounts of wealth. That is the problem, and will change. Now, this is the other side of it. We cannot continue down the path that we're going. We can't continue with a civilization that was built on cheap energy. The tar sands in Alberta are very, very expensive gallons or barrels of oil that we're getting.
Yep.
And the only reason we're getting them now is because The cheap stuff is gone. It's long gone. And yes, I mean, right now we've kind of sort of adjusted, but the reason why we started tearing into that part of our country is or part of our earth really is because it wants it. The system demands it. So at a certain point, that cheap stuff, even the less cheap stuff, that's going to run out. And at a certain point, the system will collapse of itself. And actually, there's a point in here where the sage talks about the bifurcation point, that as systems grow and they outgrow, they start to collapse. And at that point, where the collapse begins to happen, that's when small changes to the system can have profound effects across time. So yes, I mean, I can't argue with you. I mean, my God, you look at the power that some of the people have on this planet. It's like there's no way we can fight this. And yet, what other option is there? Because at a certain point, this system will likely not continue. And we're talking about within a generation or so. Just simply the fact that we've already entered the sixth mass extinction. If we continue the way we're continuing, half of all species will be gone in a generation. And the thing is, we're on that list. We are not immune. And the story of modern mind, which says that we can triumph over nature, is sort of like a little kid stomping his 2-year-old foot saying, I'm not going to go do that. I can do whatever I want. It's sort of like there's this wonderful political cartoon that, if it hasn't been drawn, it needs to be drawn, of George Bush Sr., sitting at, I think it was Rio, and saying that the American way of life is not up for what did he say? The American way of life is not up for negotiation. And the picture of him is sitting there with his arms folded, his eyes kind of closed, with a smirky look on his face and a schoolboy tie. And behind him is Mother Nature, towering over him, tapping her foot, and the little byline at the bottom saying, you know what? He's right. She's not going to put up with it for much longer. So, yes, these people have that kind of power, but that power it just can't continue. And, there are two paths. I mean, the sage talks about two paths through this great transformation that we're facing. Are we going to go down that old path of cling to the old story, or are we going to work to bring forth a new story? And you're right. Who knows if this will work? But given where I am and in my situation, it sounds a lot more fun to try and do some of these amazing things that people are doing, and getting into that work rather than just simply collapsing into a heap and falling into despair. That doesn't serve either.
I think that if more people spent time in creating solutions for the problems that we have, instead of spending billions of dollars of sending probes to Mars, instead of spending all this silly money that is spent on warfare, and coming up with alternative energy, coming up with ways to rectify the wrongs that we have done, this would be a better world. Take care of the hungry. Take care of the homeless. Take care of those who need a better education. Take care of the sick. This needs to be done before, in my humble opinion, we go to Mars or the moon again. Stand by, David. You and I have to take our final commercial break. David Christopher is my guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. www.theholyuniverse.com. And David and I will be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton.
The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Exonation, David Christopher is our special guest this hour. He is the author of the award-winning book, The Holy Universe, a new story of creation for the heart, soul, and spirit. David, before we continue, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success. But I'd like to ask you a question. Who or where does the sage in your story come from? And what is their role, and who are they?
Well, the sage, the story is actually very much set in the here and now. It's not an ephemeral kind of dialogue. It really is. They meet in the two of them meet in coffee shops and at the beach and on the mountainside. And the sage, you learn about 10 pages into the book, you go through this dialogue, and suddenly I use the personal pronoun she. And it's very interesting when I do presentations, and probably some of your listeners have had the experience too, when I started using the word she, that they go, oh, wait a minute, oh, I didn't realize that the sage was a woman. I thought the sage was a man. And that was a very typical kind of reaction. And the reason why I did that is, one, I love being a bit of a troublemaker, and I knew that would cause a little bit of trouble. And I also did it because I realized that this book would not have flown if it were just two men talking. I actually had one friend kind of quip saying, actually it was two white guys talking in the first place that caused all the trouble in the first place. But it's even more than that. This person, the sage, really represents those voices. And it turns out that not only is the sage a woman, she's also a woman who has ancestry from all 6 continents. She's Australian, she's North American, South American, from Africa. She has ancestry from Asia and from Europe. So she actually became kind of this accidental metaphor. I really didn't intend to do this, but she became this accidental metaphor for all those voices in humanity that have been held down and have been pushed down and haven't been part of that group that you talked about, the wealthy, the people who have all the money and the power. And any worldview that sees people as throwaway is the same worldview that causes ecological damage, will chop down trees, will throw garbage into the ocean, will dump pollutants in the air and the water. The work that needs to be done, that we need to do, is not just ecological work, it's also social justice work. And the same work that you're working, when somebody is working on saving a rainforest, they're also doing the same kind of work as a person who's working on restorative justice. So it's an important point that I always like to bring out, that this is a bigger. There's so much work that needs to be done, and maybe too late. Who knows? But what the heck? We might as well let's go ahead and try and have fun while we're doing it too. That I think is very important too. To enjoy, really connect what is passionate within you to the work that the world really needs.
David, our time is up for tonight, but can you tell me where your book is available?
It's available in the United States and Canada at local bookstores, and I always tell people, go to your local bookstore, support your local businesses. I love supporting them. I think they're a very important part of the work that needs to be done. Otherwise, they can go to the website at www.theholyuniverse, and that's HOLY, so www.theholyuniverse.com. They can find a local bookstore. They can order it through my website, and if they want to, they can also order it through Amazon, too. So it's pretty much out there for wherever people want to, wherever normally you'd find books.
David Christopher, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure. And first of all, congratulations on The Holy Universe. Congratulations on its win. And I would love the opportunity of having you back on in the future to further discuss The Holy Universe, a new story of creation for the heart, soul, and spirit.
Thank you so much.
Good night, David. www.theholyuniverse.com is David's website, and I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.